Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for being here so early in the dark. By way of maybe a little bit introduction, a couple of months ago when SVRA was here, Mark Dill arranged for Roberto Guerrero to be the Friday morning speaker. And so the announcement went out, and the ladies in the office said, guess who was the first respondent? Sebastian Saavedra. And I thought, what? And so anyway, Laurie, I think, knew that. She said, well, his wife is from New Palestine. What? So then when during that SVRA weekend, Sebastian wasn't able to come to hear Roberto speak because Roberto and Davy Jones were part of the Jaguar demonstration program, and because they were also involved with the Pro-Am race, they needed somebody to pinch hit for them, and Sebastian got the call because he and Roberto go back a way. And so when I went over I said, well, your wife's from New Palestine. I said, well, where do you live? And he said, here. I said, how long have you lived here? And he said, 9 years. I didn't know that. Anyway, Sebastian, welcome. Thank you for getting up so early.
And thank you.
I think that Jaguar thing was like a one-off, but what's it like living in Indianapolis, and what do you do, and when will we see you behind the wheel again?
Well, first of all, good morning. Thanks for coming, of course, in this beautiful winter night already. What happened? Yeah, it was a random thing. You know, as soon as I got the email that Roberto Guerrero was coming, I'm like, I'm down. I want to see the guy, his history for us in Colombia, and I was already set to be here. And out of the blue, he calls me and says, hey, Seb, we need people. We need people for the Jaguar event. We're short-handed. I'm racing on the USCCA with Davy Jones. Would you be willing to join us? I'm like, race in a Jaguar for fun? I'm gonna take my man, like, twist my arm, right? I'm like, oh, of course, dude. Like, I'll help you out.
Yeah.
What dates? And well, he told me the dates. I'm like, okay, well, I won't be able to make the interview, but of course, we were having a blast and kind of like remember good memories. He was my first ever spotter at the Indy 500, my first ever Indy 500, and yeah, it's a guy that I really not only admire as a race car driver, but he has become almost like family to me. So pretty good.
Well, we thank you for that, because Roberto, after he retired, he was one of those that thought, I need to stay away. I can't go because I want to drive and I've got to stay away. And so he hadn't been here for years, except I think he might have been here during the summer for a Jaguar event once, but basically he hadn't been here in May until he came back as your spotter. So thank you for bringing him back.
I mean, and it was not hard. I mean, like, I had no connections with Roberto at all. You know, like, you know him as a legend, right, in Colombia. Yeah. Such a small country in South America, like, and really no racing history whatsoever. Like, not like Brazil or like Argentina, that they're very marked, kind of historical, kind of like race car drivers and race events, and of course Formula One events and such. And so you know about Roberto, like growing up, and for me it was just kind of like Montoya at that moment, you know, because Montoya kind of like started clicking it when I was 8 years old, and I was just starting in my go-karts career. And I don't know how we actually got connected when I announced my Indy 500 with Brian Herta, Autosport. And I was like, Roberto, like, it will be an honor for me to have you in as my driver coach. You know, I'm not very familiar with ovals at this moment. What better, like, to having you, the Colombian, to be part of my first ever Indy 500 as the third generation of Colombian race car drivers. Yeah. Like, okay, where do I go? When do I go? I'm like, that's awesome. I mean, here's the days, here's where we're gonna have. Yeah. And he came, and it's amazing how the whole crowd just immediately just recognized him. And that was the first impression of the 8500 for me, just getting here with Roberto and everybody just jumping on top of the guy and asking for pictures and stuff. And that was kind of like such a cool event that I think he didn't even realize he was going to be like that. He was going to, I'm just going to go and have fun. And then everybody came along. It was pretty fun.
He's one of the nicest guys that ever drove a race car, and one of the most popular. So that's the neat thing about Indianapolis 500, with it being the same race at the same track at the same time every year. Nobody forgets the drivers from the past. But anyway, I want to tell a little story here. They came to hear you, not me, but I got to set this up. Your first Indianapolis 500, 2010. Can you believe this kid was driving in the 500 9 years ago? How can that be? Anyway, so 2010, and this was right when they had changed the qualification procedure. And most of us here are used to the up to 3 attempts, but only 1 checkered flag, and that's it. And then with the multiple attempts came in. So 2010, and he is qualified, and he is either on the bubble, oh no, he's on the bubble, that's it, he's on the bubble. And, but at that time now, you can withdraw your time and go out and qualify again with the same car. And so they decide we better get practicing here and be ready in case we need to make a run to get back in. So they go out with the car that is qualified, and it's sitting 33rd, and at 10 to 5, he crashes in practice. Big time crash. Infield Hospital, right across the way, downtown to Methodist, and then at, was it like 20 past 5, I think, Tony Kanaan, who'd been having a miserable month so far, goes out, makes a qualifying run, makes it, and Sebastian is bumped. Mario Romancini, and it's like 20 to 6 or quarter to 6, and they decide we better go out again, and so they withdraw their time, and Sebastian is temporarily back in the field. Romancini goes out, qualifies, Sebastian is bumped. Sarah Fisher's team with Jay Howard, they decide we better do a, we better pull and make a run, because if we wait too late, we won't be able to get through the line again. So they pull at 3 minutes to 6. And so by pulling, that puts him back in the field again. Are you still with me at 8 o'clock in the morning? All right. Jay Howard goes out, and the gun goes off while he's on his run, and it's not fast enough. And so he's at Methodist Hospital after crashing a car and getting bumped 3 times, and then they come in and say, you made it, from your perspective.
Goodness, I remember
I bet you do.
A lot of it. It was Paul Tracy, wasn't it?
Tracy was involved as well, but I think it was Romancini and then Jay Howard were the 2 that withdrew. Tracy was in there somehow.
Yeah, we were struggling. It was the first time for Brian Hurt Autosports to put a Indy 500 attempt. And I met Brian after the Indy Lights banquet in Homestead, actually in 2009. Yeah. After winning the championship, like okay, we gotta do this. We gotta go for the 500, and we jumped head first, not knowing much about it. And we're struggling the whole month, and we're trying to get the car somewhere. But we're just dragging, and we had to go like with very negative numbers on the aero, so like it's low downforce as much as you can. So yeah, big crash, like destroyed myself basically. I'm in Methodist having an MRI, and like my dad goes, I remember this, he goes into the MRI, kind of like the room where the guys like look at the computers, and he keeps, okay, you're in. I'm like, what? Then, oh, sorry, no, you're out. I'm like, and the guy, the X-ray guy was like, sir, don't move. I'm like, well, tell my dad to stop talking. And He goes, yeah, wait, you're in. I'm like, well, you just said that it was out. No, you're in. No, sorry, no, you're out. I don't know what to do with my dad at this point. Like, I could see like the nurses trying to get him out of it. And finally he comes out at 5, and he's like, you're officially in. Yeah. And then at that moment, Brian Herta calls, and he puts it in the speaker of the MRI machine. Welcome to the Indy 500. Burst in tears in the MRI, and the guy was like, sir, please don't move. I'm like, I'm moving. I'm like, I don't care, I'm fine. Get me out of this thing. Yeah, so like I messed up my neck. Like a lot of the ligaments were gone. So we had to do like this weird kind of like a neck support thing for me to be able to run. And because I couldn't hold my neck. Like, you know, because of the G-forces, like, you really have to get a lot of strain, and that was gone. Like, I couldn't hold, like, even if it was like laying down in bed, I had to hold my head to actually stand up. So we had to do a lot of things to do the 500. And we had to hide a lot of that too, because like the IRL was not gonna allow us to do that. But yeah, we jumped in, and it was a blessing in disguise. And as they said, as Brian Herta said, it was 2 guys in the truck kind of team, because we were that small. We had no funding or nothing. Being able to be part of the best race in the world, it was awesome.
So, I mean, did you, God, you were, what, 20 years old, did you understand all of this? Or was it just, I mean, did you needed Guerrero to talk you through the whole thing, and it was new to him too at that time?
I mean, yeah, I was 19. I was 19,
okay.
I just didn't make any, like at that moment.
You were 20 in June then, so you hadn't even turned 20 yet.
No, I was still like 19 there at that moment. And yeah, like, it was at that moment, it was surreal. Like for you, something that you've always followed was racing. And I remember watching the only thing I watched like when I was younger was the qualifying. I never really watched the Indy 500 race.
Really?
I was so into the qualifying part. And so being part of the race, and having to now like dissect the race, and of course have the best guy, Roberto, that is the most technical person you'll ever meet. So it was intense, and it just such a steep learning curve. And with a very small team, but everybody was on board and trying to make the best out of it. And it was an amazing experience, something that I'll never forget. And that first time just gets you for all of the next ones in such a better mood. You just want to do it again, and you know what? I learned from here. Now I get better. So it was pretty cool.
You mentioned your dad. Was he involved in motorsports at all?
Nobody in my family was involved in motorsports at all. Oh, I was just a very active kid. I just love sports. I love tennis, and I just had too much energy. And one uncle actually bought, when I was 8 years old, bought me a used pink go-kart. And that was my birthday present for my 8th birthday. And the first time I jumped into that thing in a parking lot, I was hooked. I loved it. It was amazing. I did all the lessons, and that's how my career started in go-karting, Colombia, in the tiniest track which doesn't exist anymore. And it was just being in the right place, right time, because as soon as that happened, Montoya wins the Indy 500. And now, like, the only thing that you're being spoken about in Colombia, it's racing. Everybody knows everything about racing. Everything knows what Indianapolis is. And that just, my first helmet was a Juan Pablo Montoya painted. It was like, you know, his design. That was my first go-kart helmet. And it was all about that. It was all about racing, and like I did very well, so I got like the right connections to push me to go overseas. And then one thing led to the other, and one day I woke up and I was a professional race car driver. I'm like, what happened? Like, how did it just happen so quickly? But yeah, it's been a blessing, a blessed kind of career. Just on, I only do it for the passion. I only do it for being on a race car, just feeling the speed and the competitiveness, and then you get into Formula. I did everything in Europe, by the way. I started in go-karts. I moved to I won the World Championship, and that gave me a contract with BMW. So I raced Formula BMW for 2 years, all around the world, USA, Asia, and the European as well. And that by winning the rookie championship, they gave me a Formula 3 ride with Mercedes. I'm like, oh man, he's looking good. You know, I'm looking at that moment Formula 1, and as soon as I win the championship in Formula 3, and that opened the doors to go to GP2. But the opportunity in GP2 was not the best. You know, it was a very iffy team. I will not say the name. And I received a call from Sam Schmidt, and this is 2008. And Sam Schmidt, hey, we're interested in bringing you to America. Like, would you be interested in racing ovals? And we're like, ovals? I'm like, no, dude. Like, it's like only crazy people do ovals. You know, that's kind of like the European mentality at that moment. I'm like, ah, dude, I don't know. Well, how about a test? We'll do a test. Okay, so it's October 2008. We go to Kansas. It's Kansas is Speedway, and that was my first test ever in an oval. I absolutely loved it. Got hooked. We went to Putnam Park here in Indianapolis or Indiana, and we were testing the same day as Andretti. Andretti Green Racing was testing that day with the Indy cars and the Indy lights. And I did very well in the test with Sam Schmidt. And comes J.R. Thorman, the vice president of Andretti Green Racing. Hey, here's a contract, take it or leave it. So I'm like, wow, I have a contract right now, and I've only been 3 days in the States. I'm like, dude, like, should I come back to GP2 and probably burn my career, or start a new career here in America? And I signed the contract, and it's the best thing I've ever done, because I never left Indianapolis either.
And then in Indy Lights, your first win was an oval. You went to Kansas.
My first, it was Kentucky. I know it was Kansas, actually.
It was Kansas.
So Kentucky was my first test. Kansas was my first victory. Yes, you're right. Yeah, it was.
And you were 18.
Yeah, I was 18.
Yeah, and then you won Toronto. I think you won 4 Indy Lights races, I think.
Yes, that Indy Lights championship was amazing. Like, we should have won the overall, and we had the mechanicals that took it away. But that opened the doors for so much more. I was already testing IndyCar. I was testing on Danica Patrick's car at that moment. So I was doing already development on the IndyCar side. I was like, well, like, if I was in Europe, I was not going to be doing absolutely nothing. I mean, just like racing DTMs or something. So like, it was such a quick transition of just being a junior race car driver to already being on a big car and kind of like helping Hideki Muto and Danica Patrick were my 2 kind of like a test driver roles. So yeah, 2009 was a very eye-opener, and that was kind of like the first slap in the face of, oh, this is real, this is happening, and it's happening at a quick pace, and you gotta hold on, because it's just gonna get a lot harder, but it was fun.
Right, one more, and then we'll go to the ladies and gentlemen of the audience here. 2014 was the first Indy Grand Prix, or whatever you want to call it, which is a little misleading because it's not a Formula 1 race, but it's the road race that opens what used to be the month of May, which is now 2 weeks. Okay, 2014 was the first year on the road course, going the wrong way. They decided to have a standing start for the first one, and I think there was big field, like 24, 25 cars. Sebastian won the pole. Standing start, unfortunately.
Yeah, it was a very good start of the month of May. Of course, I felt very comfortable on an inaugural Grand Prix, and qualifying was amazing. I mean, it was raining, and I love the rain, so I was like super on top of it. And we're battling back and forth with Hunter Ray just to get the pole position, and it's my first time in the Fast 6, and it stops raining, but it's like drying very rapidly. And Hunter Ray crashes. I'm able to just finish that lap. I get a pole. I'm like, okay, this is good. I mean, we got this. And that was the year that we were introducing standing starts and double headers. And so we're in this very fast-paced development of the launch control systems, and which they were failing a lot. You know, like, unfortunately, like, we were just not able to get the right mapping to actually make it work. And I kept doing manual, which was the only way to actually make it quick, you know, and we were by seconds, 0 to 60, like 1.6, 0 to 60, 1.7 seconds, like we were like really nailing it. for the race, he was like, no, it's mandated to go launch control. You cannot do it manually.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, we've been having so many failures. Everybody's stalling, like on the practice starts, on the pit boxes. But okay, we'll manage, we'll make it work. And so we go out there for the pace lap. So I do like a practice start, and it's emergency mode, like it's not working. I'm like, guys, like we're having issues with launch control. They were like, it's fine, I mean everything looks fine in the computers, just go mode whatever. So I click in whatever they tell me to. Okay, it's good, like, we're gonna nail it, so it's gonna be fine. So we go, we park it, we're ready like to go green. And then the whole dash just lights up and emergency mode everywhere. I'm like, oh my God, so I'm like, I have no throttle, no nothing. So this is not looking good. So like, I'm just trying to kind of like let everybody know, like, hey, I might not go. No, nothing's happening. I see the mayor, and like, mayor, look at me, dude. Probably the mayor thought, oh, he's like waving hi, how are you? I'm like, dude, like, save my. So I was just okay. So I tried last minute to go like manual mode. It doesn't go in. Like engine is just completely dead. And I'm just like holding for dear life. At that moment, like you're just a passenger. And when I saw Hunter A, which was second, going at that speed, like, and he's just, I don't know, like 10 yards from me. I'm like, well, if that's the first guy, I can't imagine the 25th guy at what speed is gonna come. Yeah. I'm just like, oh my God, come on. Like, guys, be smart. I'm just like holding to dear life. I'm just like, where's the yellow? There's no yellow, no nothing. This moment, I'm just hoping that the spotters are telling everybody what's going on. And the first nick, I remember, because I was knocked out after the first one, like I remember just kind of like going sideways, and then Aloysian, when he really hit me in the back, like it was all blackout. I mean, that moment was just kind of like very unfortunate, because that was the same car that we had to race for the 500, and now it's destroyed. So I go to the hospital, I had a bad spleen and like vertebrae, and like I destroyed again. Like that was my two biggest crashes it was 2010 and this one. So we're fine. We're gonna find our way out. Of course, now the body fit is not the same. You know, like these guys do such an amazing job putting those cars together and getting the best body fit to get the most aerodynamical car ever. So it was a rough start, which like what do you do? I mean, sometimes, as I was telling you, sometimes you're the windshield, sometimes you're the bug. I was definitely the bug this time.
And then also, I'm sure that most of you would be able to answer this trivia question. Somebody was hit by flying debris, and it was the honorary starter, and it was Mayor Ballard. You remember that?
Yeah.
Oh no!
Funny,
He was
no?
such a sportsman about it. I thought, oh no, the headlines of the newspapers. But it was fine. He was a real sportsman.
Funny enough, he comes afterwards, you know, I don't know, like to another race, because he loves racing.
Yeah.
And he brings his bloody shirt.
I didn't know that.
So I signed the mayor's bloody shirt. And I'm not joking, probably 2 weeks ago, we're doing an event here at the Speedway, actually for the IWIT golf championship, the LPGA championship.
Yes.
And we're doing some pace car rides, and he's sitting by my side.
Oh,
He comes in for the pace car ride, and he looks at me, Sebastian, very nice to see you. I'm like, are you still alive, sir?
Right.
But no, he's a very good sportsman about it.
Because he's huge with the ladies golf, and I think he's probably the reason that it came here. But I've never thought about the two of you hooking up
Yeah,
there.
me either. I mean, and we had plenty of cars. I mean, it was just destiny for him to be assigned to my car. So it was one of those fun things.
Well, thank you. Thanks for being a good sport. I didn't know if I should ask you that about that experience or not. But
Experiences.
anyway, the time is ticking by very quickly. So, ladies and gentlemen of the audience, your questions, please. Sir.
Sebastian, please describe your feelings that first time especially, and then each time at the start of the race, seeing all the people on both sides of you down the straightaway. What are the feelings and what are you thinking?
Well, I think for me that first lap, it's the most special lap, you know, before the actual race starts. Because throughout the month of May, it's work, and it's stress, and you're just you cannot sleep, you cannot eat. I mean, everything is just like so on point. Once you do that first lap, everything is good, everything's perfect. You know, you're like, we made it. You know, we're actually in the race, and you get to kind of like experience for the first time that you are in the Indy 500, and then it's for the first time, or in my way, that you get to see up instead of seeing down, and you're seeing up all these people that come to see you race, and you get to see that special event that you're in, and you get to soak it all in. It's incredibly special. Then you get into race mode, and then you actually just focus on the race very quickly, of course, because you have a task ahead, and there's a long race ahead, and the main thing that you feel is the turbulences. So much wind, so much like cars around you that you don't know what your car wants to do, because your car is a big wing. So the biggest feeling is just your car not wanting to do what you want it to do, basically. So that's it.
I remember, thank you, I wanted to hear your experience about starting in the back, because I've talked to a number of the drivers, and it's indescribable. And the really graphic one was Spike Gelhaus, and said the sky turns dark. Mm-hmm. There's so much debris. He said it's like it's dark, and it's like that way for several laps. And I remember Stefano Collati, who you bumped into once. Never mind about that. But do you run into him from time to time? Yeah, during the race, as a matter of fact. No. Anyway, Collati said that he said at the start, he said there was so much noise I couldn't hear the engine, and I thought, what? And he said with the air currents coming through the cockpit from several different directions, he couldn't hear his own engine.
Right, it's true. Like, at that moment, you're only focused on your RPM and your RPM lights, because you cannot hear anything. Because now the turbulences are going sideways. They go in a different angle that they try to suck your helmet off your head.
Yeah.
So you're just being almost like tortured by the actual helmet strap.
Yeah.
And you're going through the tire roughs like crazy. In 2 laps, you go probably 6 tire roughs, just because it's so much debris and so much oil. And I remember like my first Indy 500 was with the older chassis and the ethanol. Like, it just burns your mouth. I mean, burns your throat. So like you just you cannot even like breathe for like probably 30 seconds, just because every time you breathe, it's just like hot coals going inside you. And then when everything spreads out, you're kind of like, can I breathe now? You're like trying to drink water just to pass it down. But yeah, it's a lot of different things now I think about it.
And to the gentleman's question in the back there, Rick Mears spots, and he was asked to drive the pace car one year, and he turned it down because he said, no, I spot. And from turn 3, and they said, well, you know, we'll have somebody, you know, else spot for the first couple of laps, you drive the pace car, and then we'll get you over. He said, no, because I spend the morning with the driver, I talk him through the morning. So that said, did Roberto spend the day with you? Because you went straight to the start of the race.
Yeah.
Well, race morning and seeing everybody arrive and the grandstands look different. Did Roberto talk you through the morning?
Oh yes. I mean, and our big debrief was at the parade, like, because he jumped in front, and of course I was trying to soak my first ever parade. And like Robert just focus, like we need to do this, and then you're gonna go on the outside of turn 1 and the inside of turn 2, and don't go into 6th gear until you need to go to 6th gear. I just remember his words so vividly. But yeah, such a technical gentleman. So which we ended up racing the Baja 1000 together, and that's when you really want somebody like that knows everything, like on the technical aspect, on the practical aspect, and I think maybe that race, which is probably the most torture I've gone in my life, we've actually gone in our lives. You go in as a friend, you go out as family, just because you really go through a lot through that event, and we loved it. That really tied us even closer together, and 10 years later, like we're still connected to that specific event. And that was his last, like Baja 1000.
You shocked me when we were sitting down in the break room. Some of us remember Marco, Roberto's little boy. You remember Marco was a little toddler, blonde toddler. Well, he co-drove that day. I didn't know Marco ever drove in competition, but it was you and Roberto and Davy Jones.
Davy Jones.
And Marco.
Yeah, it was very random. It was last minute, kind of like calling, hey, Seb, would you be willing to do the Baja 1000? I'm like, oh yeah, whatever has wheels, I'll just jump in. I mean, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And so that's when I met Davy Jones. It's a fun story. For this USVCA event that the Jaguar was needing some help, the Jaguar riding experiences is being run by Davy Jones.
Right.
And Roberto Guerrero does it, and he's been doing it forever.
Yeah.
So they invited me, but back in July, I was doing a McLaren event here, and Davy Jones came as one of the instructors for the McLaren event. And that's the first time in 10 years I have seen Davy Jones. So we connected. Davy, how are you? We just had a blast kind of remembering that specific event, the Baja 1000. And then we came into the 500. I worked with them while they were racing. And now I'm part of the Land Rover Jaguar family of America.
Oh, golly, you're pressing a lot of magic buttons, and I'm thinking about another story. But ladies and gentlemen, questions? Lady, right back there.
Thank you for calling me a lady. When you started, did you drive for anybody except for Michael Andretti? Or did you, I remember, I'm from California, I worked the Long Beach Grand Prix. I remember seeing you years ago when you first came on, and I thought, oh, this guy, he's something. And
Thank you.
I followed you. I don't remember whether did you drive for anybody else except him, or?
So, I've, like, throughout my career, you mean, or that specific first year?
That, well.
Because that first year, so Andretti Green Racing, which was
Right.
back then, the Indy Lights team was owned or run by Gary Pearson, which he's been my biggest supporter, biggest investor throughout my whole career, and from Huntington Beach, California. And so I have, that's a very dear place to me. Yeah, it was Andretti Green Racing, kind of like the big team, satellite team for the Indy Lights was kind of like AFS Racing.
Right. So, and then how long were you with him?
So I raced that first year in 2009 with Andretti. 2010 I raced with Brian Hurt Autosport.
Okay.
Then my first semi-full season, which was 2011, was Conquest Racing with Eric Bachelard. Then 2012, I go back to Andretti, and I do the 500 with Andretti Autosport already then. 2013, I go with Jay Penske and Dragon Penske.
Okay.
Then 2014, and every time like I jump in the team and they go under. I'm like, oh, I jump in the team and they go under and they move to Formula E. I'm like, oh my god! I was called to go to Formula E, and I'm like, I just don't believe in electric technology right now. No, I won 500. Lucky enough, TK wins the Indy 500, and he gets contracted by Ganassi, and I'm stuck in an airport with Jimmy Vasser going to Toronto. I was like, hey Seb, so what are you doing next year? I'm like, I don't know, what am I doing? Because Dragon Penske had already kind of like said that they were going. So I signed for KV Racing Technologies for 14.
Thank you.
And yeah.
I was thinking that you had driven for Jimmy.
Yeah.
Because Jimmy's my guy.
Yes.
He's just the best. And
Amazing wine too.
yeah, I've kept up with him for years, and I mean the years, because I've been working on Beach since like 2001, I think it And so anyway, but he's a California native.
He is,
has
yeah.
a car dealership up by where I used to live, up in Napa. And anyway, we just talked, and I just, like I said, I just left. But I was almost positive you were German for Jimmy, but
Yes.
that's why I was asking the question. So, yeah, anyway, so.
And then the mentions of Penske with Dragon Racing, that was Jay Penske, who was
Jay
Roger's
Penske.
son. Anyway, there was a hand up down here and I didn't see, yes, sir.
I was just, you mentioned starting to race the pink go-kart when you were 7 or 8 from your uncle. And then, obviously, that was about the time that Juan Pablo was doing his thing with Ganassi here in the United States. When you decided that racing was your passion, were you more attracted to the road course type thing, which is obviously what you're going to be doing in karting and so forth? Because you kind of mentioned earlier that when somebody came to you with an opportunity to do Indy or even Indy Lights and do the ovals, that was a pretty new thing to you. But I'm kind of thinking at least that Juan Pablo, at least in this country, didn't really get on the map until he won here in 2000. So what drove your passion at that point? Was it clearly racing where you're turning left and right? Or even was oval racing in the back of your mind because of what kind of your racing hero had accomplished for the country?
Definitely, like road course racing was my thing, and that's something I just evolved with. You know, that's the only thing I knew. Oval racing was so little or even unheard of, aside from the Indy 500. I thought that was the only oval in the world. You know, that's kind of like 8 years old and Indy 500. What is that? So the big boom that Montoya created in Colombia, I mean, that's kind of like the motivation for like a very small country, like a very limited resources, no racetracks whatsoever. So like I'm very fortunate to like have been meeting the right people, and people have taken the time to see my skills to continue pushing me through my racing career to be here. But yeah, it was not until I had already done a lot in my like junior formulas that like oval came up. Like oval was very late, like I was 17, 18 years old when like ovals came to be something for me.
We try one more? All right. Hand up, yes, sir.
I'm curious to know, often reading professional sports, it slows down, like the quarterback, it's not a big rush on it. So when you're going 230 miles per hour, is there anything that slows down? And also, what's it like going into the first turn, especially here, because it's not banked that much?
Well, so yes, everything has to slow down. I think it slows down as you get more familiarized with the car and the speeds, because the first time you go out there, everything's 1,000 miles an hour, and you don't have even time to shift while you're in the rev limiter, and you're like man, it's like my first day at the job. But once it starts to get more naturalized and your brain starts to dissect things and understand things, everything starts to slow down to the point that it's just a dance that you're doing. And once you're around people at the same speed, like they're not even moving. It's like being in a highway. Like everybody's kind of like in the same speed, and at that moment, yeah, you're inches away from each other. But you trust the people. I don't trust the people in the highway, but I trust the guy by my side. Well, depending who's by my side, I don't know. Can't go into that. That'll be another story. But at that moment, you're just looking at angles and kind of like doing the math on what is it that you need to do in order to make it work. And what does it feel in turn one? So it's very different when it's a practice day towards a full-blown, like packed turn one, because when you're by yourself, I mean everything's you just like gray and white. There's nothing else. But when you see this whole array of colors of people standing, it messes with you a little bit. Kind of like takes away some of the reference points of your mind. So you almost have to relearn a little bit to turn one which happens very quickly, like thousands of seconds. But it's very sketchy. You know, there's not a lot of banking to hold you on. Usually cold tires, and the rule is you get out of the pits, you go flat out turn 3. Sorry, no, like you leave turn 3, flat out turn 4. You leave turn 1, flat out turn 2, and then flat out all around. That's kind of like the thing that they teach you first day. And so knowing that in the race, there's just like you gotta go flat out, whatever happens. So it gets very, very windy for sure.
Eric, one more?
Yeah.
All right, we've got time for one more.
That's my national anthem.
The lady has another. Is there somebody that hasn't asked a question yet?
Yeah, I was gonna give somebody if.
Right, this is your second qualifying attempt, madam.
So you live in New Palestine, right? You moved out?
No, I live actually in Geist.
Oh, dude.
I'm married to a girl from New Pal, which I met at qualifying day 2013. So this place has it for me, I guess. But yeah, I met her at qualifying day 2013, rainy day. You know, they actually like moved the qualifying later, and I had just met the previous night at casino night, the event that we do at the Brickyard. A friend, a very nice guy that they're working together, and I was like, hey guys, come into the garage, don't get wet. And that was her. I'm like, oh man, she's hot. And I'm like, so do you want some water or anything? And she wanted Dr. Pepper. So I gave her Dr. Pepper, and I saw her, she was like standing to another guy, and I was like, oh man, like this guy looks like Ken, like from Barbie. Like, I have nothing to do here. So I'm like, hey guys, so it ended up to be her brother. So I leave, 6 months later at the MotoGP Grand Prix, we meet again at the Hall of the Moon. And I was like, hey Sebastian, and I look at her and I'm like, damn, she's hot. I'm like, hi, like, do you remember me? I'm like, no, Dr. Pepper. I'm like, yes, Dr. Pepper girl. And that's where everything clicked on. And yeah, never again.
That's perfect.
That's our story.
Discussion on that note, I guess.
Eric, okay.
Yeah, we got to
Right.
get everybody out of here. So Sebastian, thank you again. This was
Thank you
great.
guys. Thanks for the invite. Thank you guys for working this early.